Noon, reinforcements arrived from both sides. Firemen were called in to turn their hoses on the striking workers. Warner Brothers security deployed tear gas. Common for the time, accusations were hurled that the Conference of Studio Union strikers were communists. As a result of the strike, the Conference of Studio Union's employees were assigned to other jobs in the studios. When they refused, they were locked out. The union never recovered. The violence at the Warner Brothers Studios gate also helped to fuel the passage of the Taft-Hartley Act through Congress, which eroded union protections. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
It's time for a Tech Mobility Minute.
The Toyota Research Institute recently announced a breakthrough generative AI approach based on diffusion policy to quickly and confidentially teach robots new dexterous skills. This advancement significantly improves robot utility and is a step towards building large behavior models for robots, analogous to the large learning models that have recently revolutionized conversational AI. Previous state-of-the-art techniques to teach robots new behaviors were slow, inconsistent, inefficient, and often limited to narrowly defined tasks performed in highly constrained environments. Roboticists needed to spend many hours writing sophisticated code and or using numerous trial and error cycles to program behaviors. Using the new approach, TRI has already taught robots more than 60 difficult dexterous skills, including pouring liquids, using tools, and manipulating deformable objects. These achievements were realized by just supplying the robot with new data. It's a brave new world. I'm Ken Chester.
This has been a Tech Mobility Minute.
Hi, this is Paul Metza. Honored to tell you I've been broadcasting my Wall of Power radio hour show on AM 950 for over 9 years. We have had musicians that have played with Bob Dylan and Prince, local musicians, authors, comedians, CIA agents. My motto is cool people from all walks of life in all 50 states. It airs every Saturday night at 6 p.m. on AM 950, the progressive voice of Minnesota.
Hi, this is Frank Brown, owner of Minuteman Press Uptown, Minnesota's only minority-owned union printing company. We have big news. We've moved to North Minneapolis.
Why did you move?
As a Black business owner, I wanted to be part of the North Minneapolis community to provide jobs.
Are there other reasons you moved there?
We have bigger new equipment and outgrew the other location.
What kind of new equipment do you have?
We have new equipment that allows us to print quality signage and banners. We also have a new inkjet printer, printing larger sheets, improving production efficiencies.
Is the new location easy to find?
It's not only easy to find, it's more convenient with plenty of parking. We are now located on Washington Avenue North off I-94 and the Dowling exit.
So do you still print everything?
We print more than everything. We have over 175 Google reviews with a 5-star rating. Call 612-870-0777 or visit mpuptown.com. That's mpuptown.com. We print everything.
My grandpa, Jim Warner, treated his customers like family, and Warner Stellian is still doing that today. I'm Angela Warner, and to thank you for 69 years, Warner Stellian Appliance is offering unbeatable savings of up to 40% off. Free dishwasher installation and no interest for 2 years with your Warner's card. Plus, go to warnerstellian.com for an exclusive $50 coupon. These deals end October 18th, so hurry into one of our 10 Minnesota stores. You'll love your new appliances and Warner Stellian.
I'm Candy Brothel. I'm Elizabeth Sullivan. And I'm Kelly Wagner. Energize yourself with AM 950's Sunday Shine Radio from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Sunday Shine Radio radiates wellness, consciousness, and curiosity.
Join me, Candy Brothel, for Green Tea Conversations at 10 a.m.
Exploring Sovereignty with Elizabeth at 11 a.m.
And the Being Curious Show at noon.
Our lineup focuses on igniting your own self-discovery and personal wellness.
Tune in every Sunday for Sunday Shine Radio from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m.
And let us guide you on an inspirational journey each week.
So when you get to the corner of Smith and Orchard, you're going to want to take a
left. You are not going to
then
believe this.
Then what you're going to do is turn
Marcy
onto Marcy
and Brad
Avenue
just broke up,
and go past
and apparently
the first 3
she's
lights,
happy
and
about
then take
it.
the next left.
I don't really think she's happy, but
you should be
who am
there.
I to judge, right?
Park
anyway,
on the right.
That's what I heard last night.
It's hard to concentrate on two things at once, like texting and driving. Stop the text, stop the wrecks. How will you stop texting and driving? Tell us at stoptextstopwrecks.org. Brought to you by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the Ad Council.
Portions of the following program may be pre-recorded.
Good morning and welcome to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. I'm glad you've made the connection and are with us today. I'm Lori Fitz, your host, and the goal of our show is to explore a wide range of topics that get us challenged, get us thinking about ourselves, our community, and the world around us. And perhaps inspired or challenged to do just a bit more because we've made the connection. So glad that you're joining us today. Rick Bernardo is my co-host.
Hi, that's me.
And Yvette Erasmus is joining us again.
Good morning.
And if you do, good morning. I didn't mean to cut you off. And if you haven't heard Yvette in some of our last shows that we've done with her, she's just absolutely amazing. She has a background in Master's of Science, clinical psychology, a doctorate of clinical psychology. But what she does is just blend it all together. And she's very down to earth and very creative and gets us thinking about our communication, our relationship skills, and helps us and supports us in thinking about how to embrace authenticity, how to become more empowered. And what does it mean to be a connected self? What does that look like? So thank you. Thank you for all the shows that you've been doing with us.
It's a pleasure.
I know that we start the show usually with one of your statements that you do that I love so much. Everything changes when you do. What I'd like to be thinking about today is some of us are actually getting ready for the holidays. And it seems like summer gets behind us and then bang, it's autumn and
here they are.
Thanksgiving's around the corner. Christmas is coming up. And there are stories in our head about what that all means. There are stories from our childhood of what those holidays meant. There's movies all over Hallmark about, what we, could look at as the romantic or the challenged or whatever. There are stories in our head that we have the power to reframe. Tell me a little bit about what you think about all that.
Well, I mean, we are the sum of our experiences, aren't we? Like everything that we've been through in life sort of collects in our unconscious and then shows up in the present moment. And, let's just think a little bit about holidays with family. That tends to be very triggering for people. I know that I always see an uptick in sessions around this time of the year. Everybody wants to get in because we want to get ready to, spend that holiday gathering in a way this year that's going to be different.
I know that in the past, and I've broken some of the traditions, but in the past, I felt when the whole family got together, I was assigned an age that I was still treated as.
That's exactly what happened.
I felt I was 14.
Again.
No matter how old I became,
yes,
I was embraced and treated as the 14-year-old that was the designated age that the family wanted to celebrate me, is the nice way I'm putting it
That's
now.
a nice way to put it. Yes.
That's a good reframe there.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
So what's that about?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. It's interesting when you use the words like assigned to me, because I think there's kind of a mutual interaction. It's both what your family members are projecting on you, right? And then sort of seeing you through the filters. But it's also sort of the level of development that we sort of unconsciously regress to when we move back into family of origin situations. We without even realizing it, if we're not aware of it, we default back into whatever role we are familiar with in the family. And if you want to do that differently today, the first step, of course, is just getting aware of it. Because once you're aware of it, once you see this pattern, once you catch yourself, it's in the moments of awareness that we have choice. We don't really have a choice about it until we become aware of it.
Till you see it.
Right.
I've often thought that the reason why I either was assigned, embraced, or we renegotiated every time is that was the age of the tragedy in our family, where it was around early December. My father had his first stroke. And then just before Christmas Eve, he had a more devastating stroke. And then just before New Year's, it took almost everything. So there were 3 occurrences that almost got celebrated every year, year after year
Mm-hmm.
that this happened. Now it's not really celebrated, but it was a mourning and a remembrance, and we kind of got stuck in having that be replayed every year. And as a 14-year-old, that was my, that's where I came back to in terms of taking care of everyone as a 14-year-old, which was not always a healthy way of handling things.
Yeah.
But we replay. It's almost like a story we step back into.
Well, we're not so good in some of our cultures. I mean, different cultures around the world are different, but let me say it like this. If a family doesn't have the tools to process and complete the closure and the mourning and the processing together of moving through an experience, if we live in a certain kind of family where we're supposed to override the experience, cope, be super resilient, get through it, there's more of a risk of then sort of repeating it, because what each person is actually trying to do is complete the grieving process. And so, when we have cultures where people cry together and wail and tell the stories and stay in the process together long enough, we actually metabolize the experience, get some closure. This is where rituals can be really helpful in then letting it go and then moving forward. And when we don't really do that emotional work in situations like that, or in families or in our personal lives, then we tend to sort of reenact it because there's unresolved emotional work that is still trying to complete.
And sometimes the pressure or the storyline of the holidays are to be happy. So we just want to be happy, but we're not holding both joy and pain together. We're not. We're trying to perform happy.
That's right. That's right. So when we don't work with life as it's emerging because we have a different agenda, and then we put life on its own terms on hold so that we can try to fabricate some different experience that we think we're supposed to having, then these are the things that we'll keep revisiting. And we experience them as we're getting stuck in something. When actually, if you talking about reframing, if you don't think of it as getting stuck, and you instead go, oh, there's a repeating pattern, let me lean into it. Let me actually fully feel what wants to come up this time. Let me find out what it is that is still trying to move through me, and let me get out of the way. Then we actually begin completing experiences. And if we can do that together in a family, it's very bonding. It actually creates a lot of connection and togetherness and closure.
What happens in that family if there are some that are looking to go through it and another doesn't recognize the pattern yet and is still dealing with anger? Because it's the systems, right? How does the system all function together to heal if not everyone is ready for that? What does that look like?
Well, we meet people where they're at, and we never force anybody. This would be my advice anyway. Never force anybody to go somewhere that they're not ready to go. But back to the idea that everything changes when we do. If I, as an individual, show up in my family with a different consciousness and a different ability to relax around feelings and a presence and a willingness to be with whatever is showing up, and I've done my own work of not trying to project some sort of a template onto how and who everybody should be, then the way that I'm showing up in that family system is going to ripple out and impact other people. Now, we don't know what the impact is. If somebody doesn't want to get more emotionally aware, it might create a lot of distress and a lot of ripples that feel very disorganizing to the same patterns that everybody else is wanting to stay in. And then we want to learn how to tolerate the discomfort if that's important to us. And sometimes it brings an opening where if I'm willing to sit with my feelings and bring a certain kind of presence, other people also settle into that because they've been longing for the same thing. But we don't really know.
Right.
And it doesn't really matter. You do your own work, you figure out what it is that's good for you, and you bring a connected and loving and present self, and then you let go of the outcome. You find out how people are going to react to that, and then you get more data.
And then with that data, you can make adaptations or not.
That's right.
Depending on, it's all about being in that moment, isn't it?
It is. And it's also about dropping the agenda that other people have to be happy or
it's our responsibility to
exactly. Yeah. Or whatever it is, we just begin, if you think about, if you want to do your holidays differently this year, set an intention to just go in and gather data. Just
be a scientist.
Be a scientist. Just go in and say, I'm going to really feel into what it feels like to be around all of my family members today in my present moment self. And I'm not going to do anything about it. I'm just going to gather the data.
So you're sitting there and you're feeling some kind of discomfort.
Yeah.
What's a question you ask yourself when you're feeling that discomfort? We might not know exactly what that discomfort means. Just noticing.
The very first question is, am I willing to be uncomfortable right now? Is it okay that this is uncomfortable? Can I sit with my own discomfort without doing anything about it right now? That would be the first thing.
Wow.
Yeah. Can I relax into the discomfort? This is uncomfortable. It's good to know that. When I'm talking to XYZ family member, I'm noticing a particular kind of discomfort in me. What is it? Is it fear? Is it anger? Is it bracing? Is it disgust? Is it disappointment? Is it sadness? What is the nature of the discomfort?
Mm-hmm.
That is so great, because a lot of the times when something like that comes up for me, I have this joke that it's like, I'm not in denial. I just don't want to talk about it or think about it.
Yeah.
but I'm in denial. I mean, I just kind of don't want to go there because it's uncomfortable. But if I can just even a little bit, there's something that can begin to unravel. And I can look at that. And I also remember, and that's speaking of unraveling, John Bradshaw.
Yeah.
He used to have this mobile. He would, and it's like families are like that. You touch one of them and they all
Everything
jingle and
ripples.
jangle.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep, exactly.
I thought that was a wonderful metaphor, and that allowed me, well, for example, I'm the eldest of 3 kids, and at some point I was able to say with my family, I felt like I was responsible for everything. And now my dad will joke, well, Ricky was expected to be 21 when he's 3 years old. And they know that now. That's such a gift, because in the intervening decades, I get to be a child and be goofy comedy and do music and play and all that way more than I would if I stayed in that role or did. And they've been really good with me with that. So, but that's such a gift to be able to just say that to them and go, I can't be all of that all of the time, you know.
When did you recognize that was the story?
I think it was after one of my acting out or just journeys is like leaving home. There were some things that happened where between feeling responsible and when parents are just in their young 20s, they don't know what they're doing to raise. And so I had the thought, now I can look back and go, these people are crazy. I got to leave. And it's not really literally true, but when I went to college and I did not live at home anymore, I started to have a different perspective. And that led to all of these different conversations I had with other family.
In our next segment, I'd like to explore the fighting less, because there can be a lot of tensions at the holidays because we do have expectations. And if someone doesn't live up to our expectations, or if we're feeling we're not living up to someone else's, but we don't know how to negotiate or just sit with and explore our data. So I'd like to look at that in our next segment. But before we do, I want to make sure that we give out for everyone your website, which is excellent. Yvette, YVETTE, Erasmus, ERASMUS.com. That's YvetteErasmus.com. Wonderful site to learn all sorts of good things and connect up with Yvette. We'll be right back.
The Mary T family of companies serves seniors and people with a wide range of disabilities. We provide home health care, hospice services, and accessible rental housing. This is Mary T, and we'd like you to join us. We're hiring direct care professionals, CNAs, nurses, and other support services. Our mission is to provide quality, personalized services to meet the unique and evolving needs of the people that we serve. Join a Minnesota family-owned company that was founded on a history of care. Apply today at marytinc.com/careers.
Whether you rent or own a home, we all likely have nightmare stories about home maintenance, or what I like to call home cringe moments. Join me, your host, Katie Shahan, for the Yarlow Home Cringe Show. See what home cringe-worthy stories we have for you each week as we talk with local home service pros. Learn best practices for winterizing your home or what to look for after a hailstorm. Listen to the Yarlow Home Cringe Show every Sunday at 2 p.m. or on your favorite podcast app.
Did you know Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken airs 5 nights a week at 10 p.m.? That's 5 nights of talking about ghosts, ufology, Bigfoot, and so much more. We're talking about the paranormal every Monday through Friday with some of the most trusted names in the field. Join us and step into the unknown with Ghostbox Radio with Greg Bakken, Monday through Friday at 10 p.m. Only if you dare.
Hi, this is Gina. Matthew, I will not read this next line.
I'll be your snookum wookums.
Fine. My husband is the sexiest radio host in Minnesota, Matt McNeil.
Dang straight.
When it came time to replace my vehicle, I wanted an option that was safe in the environment. I wanted a hybrid. My RAV4 Hybrid is a greener vehicle without sacrificing style and comfort. I love my Toyota Hybrid.
Toyota hybrids are incredibly fuel efficient. Test drive one today at Rudy Luther Toyota, 394 and 169 in Golden Valley.
Hi, it's Freddie Bell, host of New Beginnings, heard every Saturday at 11 a.m. right here on AM 950. Each week, I bring you timely information on finances, AARP updates, Minnesota Department of Health information, what's going on around our area, a spiritual message, my words to the wise, history notes, and more. So tune in this Saturday at 11 a.m. for New Beginnings with me, Freddie Bell. I'll see you then.
This is Chad, owner of AM 950, here to tell you about the exterior construction company I trust, Snap Construction. If your home was hit with the most recent storms, trust the most well-reviewed exterior construction company, Snap Construction, for a free home inspection.
This is Ryan, owner of Snap Construction. There are a lot of great construction companies in town. My advice is to take your time and do your research. Make sure they are locally owned and that they guarantee their craftsmanship for life. Also, you want to find a company that's been in business for at least 10 years. You want to work with a company that's going to be there long after the work is done. Snap Construction has handled thousands of claims, and we'll help you through the process.
Don't go with the out-of-town fly-by-night contractor. Most storm damage goes missed by the untrained eye. Trust Snap Construction for your free storm damage evaluation. For your free storm damage evaluation, call Snap Construction at 612-333-SNAP or visit them online at snapconstruction.com. That's 612-333-SNAP. or snapconstruction.com.
Are your remote workers putting your company at risk? Not sure what steps to take to secure your data? Hi, Mark Sommerfeld from Rymark. The Rymark team is guiding our clients through these difficult times. In fact, demand has been so high, we created an easy-to-follow guide with the 5 steps to securely work from home. It's yours free. Download our 5 steps to securely work from home now at rymarkit.com or call 651-328-8900 for a no-cost how-to discussion.
The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for fun. Your friends and your family will have a great time with the fantastic food like the pizzas, appetizers, burgers, entrees, and sandwiches, the best bowling in Minnesota, the wildly popular outdoor patio, great drink specials, all the big games on their numerous screens, and it's the perfect place for your next private event, even large gatherings for over 200. The Park Tavern is your go-to destination for everyone aged 1 to 100. Come see for yourself. Have fun at the Park Tavern, Louisiana Avenue, north of Highway 7 in St. Louis Park.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we talk about ideas that matter. Rick Bernardo, our co-host today. Hi, Rick.
Yes, hi.
And Yvette Erasmus, who has been visiting us. She's joined us for 4 shows to talk about ways that we can look at how are we communicating, how are we connecting, how do we embrace our most authentic self and claim that for ourselves? One of the things that we've been sharing at the top of our shows with Yvette is everything changes when you do. It takes some willingness to let go in order to change. Let go of what we've thought is right, wrong, true, false. This is who I am and everyone else just has to get over it. Some pride, some fear. The changes that you see in working with people, coming to you going, this just isn't working.
Yeah.
To now feeling like they understand how to make it work.
Yeah.
What sort of trajectory do you see with people who are just starting to open up to what they can gain for themselves over a period of time of recognizing new ways of thinking and doing?
Well, I think a lot of the people that I work with are trying to live from a place of authenticity and integrity. And so the struggle that many of them are having is, how do I bring my real self, my authentic self? How do I show up without my masks, without my defenses, and still be safe and still be connected to other people? Will I be accepted? Will I be, loved for who I actually am?
And not the role I'm performing.
And not the performative role that I've learned, to, and it's important for us to be able to perform in certain ways in certain situations. But I think a lot of the journey for the people that I work with is the reclaiming of myself and staying connected to the people that I love.
Some of the work has been inspired by peace.
Yes.
Tell me about that.
By peacemaking. Well, we begin making peace with ourselves. And that journey is being able to see the difference between my socialized self, the self that my adaptive self, the self that I needed to develop in order to stay safe in whatever family of origin, cultural context I grew up in. And then that authentic, deeper inner voice that is a little countercultural and a little bit scary, but also very, very compelling. And so the first journey of peacemaking is really understanding myself and reconnecting to myself, my feelings, my needs, owning my stories, owning my meaning-making system, telling the story of how I came to be who I experience myself as now, and then learning to see what's good about that, because we live in cultures where we have so much indoctrination into pathologizing ourselves and seeing what's wrong with ourselves, that's a big piece of the first piece of unraveling and undoing, is actually reclaiming what's good about that.
So often I hear people, I just want to have it be on my own terms, that I feel like the world's around me, but what are my terms?
Yeah.
Is that part of that journey, is exploring what your quote unquote terms are?
Yeah. So it is for some people. I would say there's two big moves that we make. Either we're bringing ourselves up from shame and we're reclaiming ourselves, like, I want my truth. I need to bring me back online.
Right.
Because my pattern of adaptations were self-negating. I think I'm bad and everybody else is good. So I keep submitting to everybody else. I keep going away to make everybody else happy. So people who have that style of defense, it's very much about bringing myself back online. But the other way that people can go is into grandiosity. And I'm just better than everyone else. And everybody else has to change and be like me. And I don't understand what the problem is. You're all the problem. I'm fine. And if that's the adaptation, it's the other way around. Then what I'm really learning to do is bring myself back down into shared humanity, and the kind of humility that isn't like shame-based or humiliation-based, but the kind of humility that allows you to just connect with other imperfect, messy humans and be allowed to be part of the human race and not have to be so special, so extraordinary, so superhuman all the time.
Or along those lines, that same grandiosity can sometimes lead to permission for a whole group of people to be better than another group. And a whole grandiosity in terms of, well, everyone else is just stupid.
Exactly. So this is a kind of an arrogance and superiority that is deeply fragmenting and not really helpful. And actually people, yes, you have your people who are just like you, but it's a very lonely position to be in existentially. Because we're interdependent. We're actually wired for interdependence and ecological connected relationships with one another. And if we start fragmenting that out, it gets very, very lonely over time.
Fragmenting and dismissing. That's the
beautiful.
hard part.
I agree.
And speaking of which, when you said the word terms in ethics, especially business ethics, terms very often means something very limited, which is very imprisoning for everybody. So it means something measurable, commodified, time-based. All of those things are good to measure certain things, but as I often will tell my classes, it can be like looking at a beautiful sunset through a straw, and you'll miss most wisdom traditions, and healthy families even know that the important things aren't always measurable. They are about our relationships and our dependence and, deeper sacred elements.
I think that's part of the frustration that people come up with and why they want change. And as we get older, especially, we start to look at, well, what does it mean? There's a lot of doing. And we've done a lot of doing for the last X number of years. So has there been a purpose or not? What does that mean? How do we do that and do I want to continue in this same storyline? Do I want to continue when it's not feeling like it's working?
And, whenever somebody is asking that question, there's a vision that is trying to emerge inside of them of a better way. And I think another piece of it is really giving some time and attention to what is it that you're imagining would be better? What are you longing for in this family system? What kind of relationships are you actually longing for? Take some time to get really, really clear on what you're reaching for.
It's interesting. We don't really ask ourselves enough or ask each other what we want.
Yes.
What do you want?
Yes.
It seems like such a simple question, but you can get wrapped up on an idea or this is what needs to happen and not just really step back to what you do when you're a kid of knowing what you want.
Yeah.
Kids know what they want, and which is great and priceless. When did we stop giving ourselves permission to want something?
When grown-ups said you can't have what you want.
Yeah.
That's when that happened. You have to put your wants away. This is not the time. You have to be in school. You want to play, you don't get to play. You want to eat, it's not time to eat. You want to sleep, it's not time to sleep. Like, we get a lot of training early on, some of us do, that what we want in that moment is actually not what's important. What's important is behaving in compliant ways to authority figures and being obedient and easy.
Talk about being uncomfortable. I mean, really, that's another version of that. If I want something, I'm trying to get. Well, I am much better at wanting things, but that's different than am I going to get it and expecting it. But there's certain things I want to see wonderful things for other people. It's great to want that. I like that. I can't fix it all, though. There's an example, but sometimes it's even more selfish. I want to go to Italy. I want to do them. So
is that selfish?
I don't think it's either or. Again, this is a heartfelt ethics question. Sometimes it will serve other people and me at the same time. That's what I want to go for. But I don't think it's something about me, but it's also about a lot of other people, my family, my ancestors. And so anyway, I like the crossroads where our own deepest joys, and I say deepest, it doesn't have to be, I want candy today, and the world's needs might meet. I think that's a wonderful place to kind of focus on. Just,
I look at things like, what do I want? And then, is that enough? What I want, or is it too much? And is there a way to look at wants differently as we've gotten older and we've got these experiences?
Well, I like going back to Dr. Marshall Rosenberg's ideas of universal human needs, the intrinsic motivators that help us survive and thrive. I think we have an internal blueprint that gives each one of us guidance about what it is that we want or what is needed in order for us to thrive in our lives. And I think being mammals, we are wired in that blueprint to what you were saying, Rick, for the things that we actually genuinely want to also be things that serve other people. I do think that when I live into my fullest purpose, that is a contribution to my communities. And when I don't heal my pain or I don't achieve what it is that I'm meant to do, that I'm taking something away from my communities, that these things are not as separable as a part of us might think,
And if we've been nurtured in a culture of individualism.
And competitiveness. Where your gain is my loss, that is a problematic mindset.
Instead of your gain is our gain.
Exactly. Which is a much more interdependent way of thinking about it. Like the tide rises, lifts up all boats, right?
Yep.
That's a much better way than if one boat goes up, all the other boats go down. No, it doesn't have to be that way.
Or the pie, if you take a piece of pie, there's less pie instead of making a bigger pie.
Yes.
There's an abundance to that pie. Lots of flour, lots of fruit. We can do this.
Yeah, exactly.
Which gets to another subject that I hoped that we'd be able to get to, and that's flourish. I think we all want to flourish.
Yep.
I mean, it sounds good, but we don't always know what flourishing means. And we don't always recognize when we are flourishing.
Mm-hmm.
What for you in your studies as well as working with people, what allows a person to flourish?
The more they trust themselves. That's what it comes down to over and over again. And the things that disconnect us from self-trust have to do with the ways in which we've been oppressed, repressed, and traumatized. So the self-trust piece is really learning to cue into the wisdom of your own system, which can be very difficult for people who have learned that they are inherently bad or wrong or flawed, and therefore they are untrustworthy, and therefore they outsource their wisdom to any external authority.
So they don't trust their gut.
Nope.
And they look to others for approval. And if what they're doing gets approval, then that is
what they're going to do. And it doesn't matter if it's self-sabotaging or self-negating. That's the thing they're going to do to, quote unquote, stay safe in their relationships with other people. And that's a very individual and deep, long journey for a lot of people. But this idea of like learning to trust what you want, learning to trust the motivations that are rising inside of you, learning how to feel all of the feelings of your life, which is part of your internal guidance system, without being a slave to your feelings. You're not just going to like always look for comfort. You know, I'm not talking about the comfort junkie kind of, you know, approach of I have to feel good all the time. You know, the emotional intelligence piece there is the ability to feel every feeling and then connect that feeling to the need that wants to be met. So if I'm feeling sad, I have a need for mourning. I need to grieve. And then there's a willingness to allow those energies to move through me like the weather so that they can release, so that I can get back into the present moment. Otherwise, we are so full of filters of unprocessed past experiences that we don't have access to wisdom for the present moment because we're still hijacked by memories of the past.
It's funny you should say that. It reminds me of when I'd want to take my mom to a movie and she goes, "Is that a sad movie?" And I'm like, "Well, there might be some sadness. I don't know.
Maybe.
I don't know." And it was, "I don't want to go to a sad movie." I'm like, "Well, okay."
Yeah.
And it was like, "Well, why don't you want to go to a sad movie? I mean, it's just a movie." She goes, "If I start being sad, I'll never stop crying."
I hear that so often.
Isn't
So
that
many people
interesting?
think that. And you know what's so funny is when you start crying, usually it's a minute or two. And sometimes it's 15 minutes. But we're, you know, like that's pretty much all your body needs. It's really not a forever thing.
We're laughing. It's not a light thing, but it is a temporary thing.
Well, but to honor ourselves, to allow ourselves to have that fear that we literally, and I think she literally believed that she could not come back after starting to cry, and how to give anyone that assurance. Because I don't think until the very end did she ever really let herself cry. And then when she did, it might have been nice if we'd done it a little earlier.
Well, and just a couple of things. If you have somebody in your life who is saying that, or if you're one of the people feeling that, my first piece of just counsel to that is don't do it alone. Be, you know, set up some time. I've often said this in the programs that I run, like set aside time every day for crying. You should be crying every day, like brushing your teeth. Like
that's
just
wonderful.
This ability to just allow feelings to move through and metabolize and process. Let your heart break a little bit every day and give yourself a minute or two to connect with that experience. And then you can put it away and you can move on with the rest of your life. And if there's some deeply unprocessed stuff, find a good therapist, find a good friend, and just say, I need to create a container where I very intentionally dip into this sadness and I feel it and I move some of it through, and then I can put it away and get on with the rest of my day. And I'm just going to make that a daily practice until the weight of it has been metabolized.
When you said that this time, this was the first time I've thought about the exercise of heartbreaking and being able to allow ourselves to heartbreak allows us also then to reconnect. If we have not been broken, then we may be holding on by a strand. You know, and why not just let the heart break, but then be intentional of how does that then get connected after it's broken? What do you need to do that allows you then in that process of allowing it to break?
Every time your heart breaks and you come back from it, your heart is stronger and softer and more supple but it's got a strength. It can hold more from life.
Well,
But
it is a muscle.
It is exactly.
We talk about it being a muscle, but how do we work? I mean, that's a
right.
wonderful exercise to think about in terms of to exercise that muscle. Allow yourself to embrace that heartbreak every day.
The alternative is that you get brittle and rigid. And
I see,
inflexible.
and it feels to me that becomes very thin.
Yes.
You know, it becomes a very thin stretch and just holding on so that you won't.
Yes.
But when you do get brittle and you do like smash that fragile thing, you can make a really cool mosaic.
Yeah. In the spirit of nothing is ever wrong.
That's right.
You're going to find something good in everything.
There's gonna be a very cool mosaic. And we're going to leave this segment with thinking about how to reconnect our heart into a mosaic that is much more strong and maybe has a new story to it. And we'll be back to spend more time with Yvette as she guides us to think in new ways and embrace who we are. That allows us to grow in strength and power and community. We'll be right back.
Do yourself a favor and check out the amazing cuisine of eatlocalminnesota.com. More than just a website, eatlocalminnesota.com provides you with the best local and independently owned restaurants in the Twin Cities. Specializing in Szechuan and Peking cuisine, the Great Wall Chinese restaurant has been a local favorite since 1981. They offer one of the most extensive menus in the Twin Cities. Favorites include the sesame chicken, imperial beef, and Peking duck. The Great Wall restaurant is located off 45th and France, with takeout available too. More at greatwallrestaurant.us.
The next time you're out in South Minneapolis, make Nightingale off 26th and Lyndale your go-to dining option. It's a comfortable neighborhood restaurant that features a delicious menu of American classics, plus a wide drink and cocktail selection. Nightingale has dining room and bar seating available, plus takeout and delivery. Current hours are 5 p.m. to 1 a.m. daily with the full menu until midnight. More at nightingalempls.com.
How does this sound? Doesn't this sound better? If you've decided to level your home and build new or to renovate, hire Better Futures Minnesota instead to take it apart by hand. Think before you scrap. Think of the energy and greenhouse gases saved when someone repurposes your old cabinets, fixtures, and lumber. Think of all the resources saved by diverting those building materials from the landfill. Better Futures Minnesota makes it happen for you. Hennepin County residents and public entities, funds are available to make the environmentally responsible alternative comparable to a typical demolition. For more information, check out betterfuturesminnesota.com. That's betterfuturesminnesota.com or call 612-351-8650. And don't forget to shop the Reuse Warehouse in Minneapolis.
In retirement, it's all about income, your money making money, while still controlling your principal. If your portfolio has recently taken a big hit, you're not set up for retirement income. We're Ferguson Financial, and that's what we do. We position portfolios to generate retirement income. Learn how it's done. Call us today, 888-429-5569, and check out our retirement income program, Sunday mornings at 9.
Tune in for Philosophy Talk, a program that questions everything.
Accept your intelligence.
Coming up, non-duality and the oneness of being.
In Sanskrit, the word Advaita refers to the belief that everything is one.
But if everything is one, then who are you? And who am I?
Well, if we actually exist and we're not just an illusion, then we're one and the same.
So I'm just talking to myself?
Non-duality. Next time on Philosophy Talk.
Philosophy Talk, every Sunday at 8 a.m. on AM 950.
Join Twin Cities Quorum as they celebrate their 30th annual National Coming Out Day Luncheon. This inspirational and transformational event gives voice to the power of living openly, honestly, and with authenticity at work, in our families, and in our faith, and across our lives. The realities of living an authentic life are deeper than just being out. We all have many layers of identity, and we must work together to create a world where people can bring their whole self to everything they do. The National Coming Out Day Luncheon serves as a celebration of who we are individually and together. Reserve your tickets today for Friday, October 13th. This year's National Coming Out Day luncheon will be at the Minneapolis Convention Center in Minneapolis. The Marketplace Expo opens at 10 a.m. and the luncheon will begin at 11:45. Tickets are available to members for $60 or non-members for $75. Learn more and purchase your tickets at TwinCitiesQuorum.com on the events page. That's Twin Cities, QUORUM.com.
Lost language, isolation, colonization, disease and torture, lost family, relocation, allotments, reservation.
History has taken its toll on our families. Our fathers and grandfathers, our mothers, our grandmothers, they didn't deserve to be raped and abused. I don't deserve to be raped and abused. Today I walk with pride. I'm reclaiming my body, my heritage, and traditional customs that value all living things. I'm learning healthy boundaries, and I stand with Minnesota Indian women to end sexual violence. Sponsored by the Minnesota Indian Women's Sexual Assault Coalition.
Welcome back to Connections Radio Show, where we've had the privilege of Yvette Erasmus joining us. We've done a series since June with Yvette guiding us and thinking about our authentic selves and how to claim that for ourselves and how to be our own data collector, using who we are and how we feel as something to honor and learn from. And Rick Bernardo co-hosting and also sharing his ideas as from an ethics and a thoughtful health perspective as well.
I'm trying to think.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you were about to share with us before we went to the last break an experience that you've had that helped put some things in perspective around the holidays.
Well, yeah, there's a moment I will never forget during the holidays. I was right out of graduate school, and I would go from California to Connecticut because I lived in California for decades. And basically, there was in sort of a conversation that would come up with my father, and we've talked about this, so it's not, it's fine if he hears this because he knows. But he would worry about me, like I didn't have a track in my life, and I was actually in the middle of, I was yet to be on America's Funniest People. I was yet to direct public health programs around different states in the country and all these things. I was on the path to creating that, but it looked like he doesn't know what he's doing. And we had that conversation, and I got fed up and started to leave the room. And my dad sort of burst out, "Go ahead, leave like you generally do, or like you always do." I mean, this is like an Italian emotion. It was bigger than I'm saying. And I had a moment, and I encourage everybody, if you hear a little whisper that you hadn't heard before in your head, and it was really quick, but I stopped, and it was like, he's afraid. He's angry, but I got that he's acting like he's afraid that I'm going to leave, because I am. And I do leave. So I had that moment, and I stopped, and I thought, this happened very quickly. I thought, what if I saw him as somebody that's not my father, who's supposed to know how to be a father in this situation? Yeah. What if I just let that go in the moment? He's just somebody who's afraid. And it changed our relationship. I apologized. And I said, I can tell you're afraid I'm going to leave, and I know I'm gone a lot of the times. And then I assured him, but I acknowledged what I in a way I had never seen what he was feeling, in a way he couldn't even say. And it got so much out of the way. Just to be able to do that, to let go of the role he was supposed to be in quotes, and see him as somebody who was frightened and missed me. That changed everything.
And that can happen, I think, also when there are holidays that people are coming to visit each other.
Oh, yeah.
And there is a coming and going, and there is a longing and a fear. Recently, I've had more experiences when I've seen people angry, and it hasn't necessarily gotten me angry, but I've looked at the situation, felt into my own data, since I'm not angry, but they're angry. Why is that? What's going on here? To be able to see something different. Because I think we also can put a judgment on anger.
We get scared around anger. And I think it's such a beautiful example of rehumanizing instead of seeing somebody through a role and reducing them to the role of father or the role of son, and actually seeing the full humanity of what's happening in that moment. Because when you connect with what's in someone's heart and you can see through the anger to the pain, to the fear, to the longing, to the desperation, to the helplessness, then we have a pathway to actually connecting with the humanity of the other person instead of getting stuck in our own defensive states.
And trying to prove we're right.
Exactly.
Because that's what anger seems like it comes down to, is I'm right, you're wrong. Why don't you just agree with me? At what point can we allow ourselves not to have to agree and have that be okay, but then be able to be open to share how we feel differently?
I tend to think of anger as a combination of two things. There's a deeply unmet need and a fear that the person has. And then it's covered up with a lot of judgment that it shouldn't be so. And to the degree that our attention is on the judgment, we will get righteous and forceful and violent, interpersonally or physically. And to the degree that we can get our attention on the deep need that is trying to get acknowledged, we can relax and rehumanize and actually find a way forward through anger. But if we make the mistake of thinking that anger has to be aggressive, we're just going to get fearful ourselves, and then we're going to fight if we think we can win, and we're going to flee, like you were describing, if we don't think we can win.
Midwesterners have a hard time with fighting.
Do they?
We do. Well,
directly, perhaps.
Directly. Yeah. Let me. There's still anger issues.
Yeah.
But the fighting seems to be not nice.
It's underground and subversive and sideways.
Yeah.
And then it's very difficult to get your finger on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It's still there, but it's not direct.
No, it's indirect aggression usually.
And right on those notes, I always try to remember, for me, first of all, but anybody else I'm friends with, if it can help, I see anger as protective. What are you trying to protect? If you can kind of even get there a little bit, there are some other choices about. But I used to be the king of not getting angry, because I pushed my brother over when we were kids and gave him a concussion. So I have worked really hard at getting back in the saddle of knowing when I'm angry and how to express it and not being afraid of it in turn either.
Yeah. Well, it's such powerful, transformative energy if we know how to channel it for a life-affirming purpose. And
go ahead. But sometimes it seems like what a person says they're angry about may not be what they're really angry about.
Yeah.
So the anger about, let's say, just differences in politics, it very much feels to me like there's something else going on with that anger in politics, and you're right and I'm wrong, and this is the way to think. And
100%. I absolutely agree with that. So if we go with that assumption that people get angry and they're not sure why they're angry, then the very first thing we should learn how to do is ask a lot more questions in the early stages, because we need a little bit of space to become aware of what is really important to us. And if we can ask those questions, it seems like such and such is important to you. Is it about this value? Is it about that value? Is it about this principle? Is it about that principle? As opposed to in the early stages, getting too hung up on the rightness or wrongness of a particular thing. Then we can all get a little bit more awareness about what's really driving this before we dive in to grappling with it.
So in the last few minutes we have, people may be afraid that they're going to get into fights with their family. And what are some things that we can help people think about to allow them to have a more authentic time during the holidays with their family?
Well, 3 very simple things that are really hard to do. 1, relax into all emotions. Just work on relaxing your nervous system when somebody is sad or upset or angry or whatever it is. Just learn to regulate your own emotions, relax into it. Nothing bad is happening. Somebody's just having a feeling. The second piece is ask, I wonder what is important to them about this. Why does this matter? What is important about this? What is the thing that they're trying to get at that is so deeply important to them? And then the third thing is keep your attention on what would help. Not what is wrong, but what would help. What is needed right now? What would help right now? How can I show up in this moment in a way that is a contribution as opposed to a defense?
What would help? Maybe not saying anything.
Maybe. Sometimes it's just about being present. I'm not going to do the old thing that I always do, which is jump in and diagnose you. You know?
Yes. And when you're being diagnosed, just take it as kind of like, well, that's interesting, that perspective.
Yeah.
And I believe humans have some wiring in them that by default goes to the quote, something is wrong here.
Yeah.
And anything about any way to let that go in terms of, well, what would help?
What would help? What is needed right now?
Would be so freeing and create peace within to start with. And then everything could flow from there outside of us too.
Yeah.
But it also achieves what you talked about in the last segment in terms of what we really want ultimately is contributory to the whole. It is contributory to the community.
Yeah. People want to be seen. They want to be known. They want to be seen and known for who they are on their terms, and they want to be accepted. And when we can begin getting those foundational blocks in place, then people can change in a way that doesn't feel to them like a submission of who they are. And that's really important. It's really important for people to change on their own terms for reasons that make sense to them, not to make other people happy.
And when we can get to that point of trusting our gut, trusting who we are is a good thing, and being able to express it, approval is not as important.
No, connection and intimacy becomes much more important, and collaboration and co-creation and
how can I help?
Yes, and helping one another out in ways that are actually energizing for both people becomes a whole new game. So much more satisfying.
Well, I want to make sure that folks know how to connect with you, Yvette. You've been such a blessing for these last few months to come in and share your knowledge, your thoughts, your inspiration. So to find out more about Yvette, you can go to her website, which is YvetteErasmus.com, but I'm going to spell it for you. YvetteErasmus.com. And at that website, she has videos, she has thoughts, she has ways to connect. And you've got a podcast.
I do. I have
share
a
about that podcast.
Conversations from the Heart. Every Wednesday morning, I do a free Q&A session. Anybody can join that. And then the replays of that Q&A session get turned into the podcast, which is very fun. It's a lot about scripting and applications. Like, how does this actually work in real life?
So you can still get more with Yvette on her podcast. And we just thank you again for being part of Connections Radio Show.
Thank you. Thank you.
End-of-life decisions are not easy to make. Hi, I'm Mary T. of Mary T. Hospice Care. It's important to make sure that this difficult time is meaningful and comforting to you and your loved ones. Our hospice team provides an individualized program of physical, emotional, spiritual, and practical care so your loved one is comfortable and not in pain. At Mary T. Hospice, we understand